I should have never opened that email. I've replayed that moment in my head 1,000 times, like a loop I can't escape, like a cruel rerun of the one mistake that ruined everything. You'd think it's such a small thing. One click, one glance, one impulsive decision at 2 in the morning when I was too tired to care and too curious to resist. But it's never small, is it? Every bad story starts the same way. I didn't think it mattered. And now I'm sitting here, whispering into the void, hoping that by telling you this, I can convince you not to make the same mistake I did. Though if you found this story, maybe it's already too late. I used to laugh at those chain emails, the ones that said things like, forward this, or you'll die in 7 days. I thought they were relics from the early internet, dumb jokes people used to scare kids, the kind of thing you'd stumble on in an old spam folder and roll your eyes at before hitting delete. But I've learned something those warnings never said out loud. Sometimes the joke is just camouflage. Sometimes the laughter is there to keep you from looking too closely. That's what this was. A trap, hidden behind a subject line that begged me not to touch it. And like the idiot I am, I thought that was funny. I thought it was harmless. But the truth is, ever since that night, I haven't slept without hearing the whisper. I haven't looked at a screen without catching the flicker of something in the corner. My phone, my laptop, even the TV. It follows me everywhere now, bleeding through pixels like it owns them, like it owns me. I know how this sounds. Crazy. Overdramatic. Another random person on the internet making up a scary story to get clicks. And maybe you're already hovering over the comment section, ready to type fake. But listen to me. If you leave now, you'll never know what it was that found me, what it wants, and what it will do if you ever see it yourself. Because the real horror here isn't just the email. It's what came with it. There's a reason I'm speaking in the past tense, like it already happened, because in a way it has. Every day since that click has been a countdown. I don't know to what, but I feel it closing in. The dread doesn't fade, it grows. Like mold spreading through a house, silent, invisible, until the beams snap under the weight of it. So before I start from the beginning, I need you to understand, this isn't just a story. It's a confession. And if you keep listening, if you follow me through this, then you're part of it now. Don't say I didn't warn you. But warnings don't matter, do they? I ignored mine. And that's when everything started. Before everything went wrong, my life was boring. That's the part that stings the most. There wasn't some great adventure waiting for me. No dramatic twist of fate I could have avoided. It was just me, sitting in front of a glowing screen. Another sleepless night wasted on emails that didn't matter. I worked a dull job in IT support. Not glamorous, not exciting. Just endless tickets from people who didn't know how to reset a password. I dragged myself out of bed, fix what needed fixing, grab a coffee that tasted like burnt cardboard, then head home to do it all again the next day. My biggest rebellion against the monotony was staying up late, scrolling through my inbox, hunting for some scrap of distraction. You know that feeling when your mind is restless, but your body is too tired to do anything. That's where I was most nights, caught in limbo, staring at the blue-white glow of my laptop like it was going to give me something, anything, to feel alive. Mostly it was junk. Endless promotional offers from stores I didn't remember signing up for. Newsletters I never read. Old threads from co-workers who couldn't format an email to save their lives. Sometimes I'd open the spam folder just for entertainment. The way you might check under your bed for monsters even though you know you won't find any. And spam can be funny. You wouldn't believe how creative scammers can get. Nigerian princes still alive and well, desperate to hand over their fortunes. Dating services promising true love in my zip code, except the profile pictures looked like stock models from a 2003 hair dye ad. My favorite was one that claimed to sell authentic vampire teeth. They even had testimonials. Best bite I've ever had. I'd laugh, shake my head, and hit delete. That was my little ritual. And honestly, I needed that kind of dumb humor. Because the truth was, life had gotten heavy. The apartment was too quiet since my roommate moved out. Friends had drifted away, busy with their own lives, their own families. Even when I texted, replies took hours, sometimes days. I tried to fill the silence with podcasts, horror videos, music, but silence always crept back in. So yeah, I clung to the absurdity of spam. It was stupid, but it was mine. Looking back, maybe that's why I didn't just close the laptop when I saw it. Maybe that's why I leaned closer instead of scrolling past. My life had gotten so numb that even a warning dressed up as a joke looked like a spark, because it didn't start with flashing lights or an ominous knock at the door. It started with something that looked like nothing at all, just another line in my inbox. Ordinary. Forgettable. That's the thing about horror. It doesn't always roar its way into your life. Sometimes, it creeps in like static on a call, so faint you almost miss it. Sometimes it waits in plain sight, hiding behind the everyday. And if you're thinking, I'd never fall for something like that, let me stop you there. Neither would I. I wasn't stupid. I didn't click on shady links or fall for phishing scams. I prided myself on spotting fakes a mile away. That was literally my job. But what I saw that night didn't look like a scam. It didn't look like anything, really. And maybe that's why it scared me so much in hindsight, because it was ordinary. One minute I was scrolling past ads for weight loss pills, and the next, there it was. At first, nothing about it screamed danger. No weird attachments, no foreign characters, no broken English. Just one subject line, sitting quietly in the inbox, like it belonged there. And the subject line didn't promise me riches. It didn't threaten me with bad luck if I didn't forward it. It didn't even look desperate. It just said in plain black text, "Do not open." That was it. No sender, no timestamp, no context. Just those 3 words. And I wish to God I had listened. But I didn't. Because that night, in my lonely little apartment, with nothing but the hum of my fridge in the background, curiosity felt stronger than caution. And so I leaned closer, my finger hovering over the mouse. That was the moment everything normal about my life ended. The words stared back at me like a dare. Do not open. Simple. Unassuming. But the longer I looked at it, the more wrong it felt. Everything else in my inbox had context, addresses, timestamps, subject lines that tried too hard. This one had none of that. No sender, no date, just the words, floating in my inbox like they'd been carved there. I told myself it was a glitch. Email servers hiccup all the time. Maybe some corrupted metadata left me with an empty header. That was the rational explanation. And God knows, I wanted it to be rational. But then I hovered over it. My cursor trembled, the little arrow quivering like it knew what my brain didn't. Normally, hovering gives you a preview, sender info, the first line of the message. But this, nothing, just a blank space, as though the email wasn't connected to anything at all. And that's when I noticed something else. The placement. It wasn't at the top of my inbox, or buried somewhere in the middle. It sat between 2 messages I remembered reading hours ago, like it had slotted itself in, carving out a space where no space had been. That unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. My rational brain was whispering words like bug and cache error. But a louder part of me, the part that still checked under the bed sometimes, was saying, "Don't touch it." So of course, I touched it. The click was so light, just the soft tap of a mouse, but it landed like a thunderclap in my skull. The screen blinked once, like it needed to catch its breath. Then the email opened. No fancy formatting, no flashy design, just a blank background, pale gray instead of white. A single line of text sat in the center of the screen, written in an ugly, blocky font I'd never seen before. "This was not meant for you." That was it. No signature, no sincerely. Just those words, jagged and harsh, like they'd been punched into the screen instead of typed. My first instinct was annoyance. Spam was one thing, but this felt like a prank. A bad one. Some script kiddie trying to spook random people. But the second instinct was curiosity. If it wasn't meant for me, then who was it meant for? My eyes slid down, and that's when I saw it. An attachment. The file name was nonsense. A string of numbers and letters that didn't match any naming convention I knew. No extension, no recognizable format. Just digital static given a name. And here's where I should have stopped. Closed the tab. Shut off the computer. Maybe even tossed it out the window, for good measure. Because this wasn't like clicking a shady link or downloading a pirated movie. This felt different. Deliberate. But curiosity is a cruel disease. I clicked on the file. Nothing happened at first. No download bar, no error message. Just a second of silence, as if the computer was deciding whether or not to obey. Then the screen went black. For a moment, I thought I'd killed it. But then, faintly, an image appeared. It wasn't clear, just a grainy square in the middle of the screen. The kind of distortion you get from corrupted photos. At first, it looked like nothing. A gray blur, a few streaks of static. But as I stared, shapes began to emerge. It was a face. No, worse than a face. A suggestion of one. Eyes too far apart, mouth stretched wrong, nose missing entirely. The longer I stared, the more I wished I hadn't. Because it didn't feel like looking at a picture. It felt like looking through a window, and something on the other side was staring back. The image flickered, once, twice, then disappeared. I sat frozen, every hair on my body standing up. I wanted to believe it was just corrupted pixels, a trick of the light. But deep down, I knew better. Then the text came back, new lines flashing onto the email, one by one. You shouldn't have seen that. Now it sees you. My chest tightened. I slammed the laptop shut, hard hammering. The room was too quiet. Even the hum of the fridge sounded wrong, like it was holding its breath with me. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the closed laptop like it might burst open and drag me inside. I told myself I was overreacting. I told myself it was nothing. Just code, just corrupted data. But then my phone buzzed. I grabbed it, desperate for normalcy. A message notification. Except when I opened it, there was nothing. No sender, no contact. Just the same line, in the same ugly block font. Now it sees you. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. And in the silence that followed, I swear I heard something. A whisper, soft, like static bleeding through the walls. Not words, not exactly. But it felt aimed. At me. That was the first night I realized something had followed me home. Something that didn't care about screens or servers or Wi-Fi. Something that lived in the spaces between. And the worst part? I'd invited it in with a single click. The next morning, I told myself it was all in my head. A bad dream fueled by too much caffeine and too little sleep. The email was gone. When I powered the laptop back on, the inbox looked normal again. No strange subject lines, no corrupted attachments. I even checked my spam and trash folders, desperate for proof it hadn't been real. Nothing. For a while, that almost worked. I convinced myself it had been a glitch, maybe even some kind of sleep deprivation hallucination. But then the little thing started. The first was on my desktop. A new folder sat in the corner, unlabeled, the icon just a blank square. I hadn't created it, and when I clicked, the folder was empty. I deleted it, only for it to reappear the next time I restarted. Then came the flickers. My monitor would dim for a fraction of a second, as if something had passed between me and the screen. Sometimes the cursor would move, just slightly, like invisible fingers brushing across the trackpad. By the third day, it wasn't just the computer anymore. I'd be walking through my apartment and catch my reflection in the TV, even when it was off. Not my reflection, exactly, but something like it. A darker silhouette, its head tilted just a little too far to the side, as if studying me from behind the glass. I told myself I needed fresh air, so I went to grab coffee with Mark, one of the few friends I still had from work. He noticed right away that I looked rough. "Jesus, man," he said, sliding into the booth across from me. "You look like you've been up 3 nights straight." I forced a laugh. "Yeah, well, you try tech support during tax season." He smirked, but it faded quick when he saw my hands trembling around the coffee cup. "Seriously, what's up?" I hesitated. How do you explain something like this without sounding insane? But the words spilled out anyway, about the email, the attachment, the face. Mark listened, skeptical but patient, stirring his coffee slowly. When I finished, he leaned back and shook his head. "Dude, you know better. It's just malware. Some creep messing with you. Delete your cache, run a scan, you'll be fine." "Already tried," I muttered. "It's not normal. The file's gone. The email's gone. But it keeps showing up. In other ways." Mark sighed, giving me that look people give when they're trying not to say you're losing it. "Look, don't get stuck in your own head. Weird stuff happens online all the time. You're letting it get to you." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted that so badly. But while he was talking, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, and slid it across the table. A single notification glowed on the screen. No contact name. No number. Just 3 words in that same jagged font. It sees you. My stomach dropped. Spam. Mark said quickly, brushing it off. Weird, right? Probably coincidence. But the color had drained from his face, and he turned the phone face down like he didn't want it looking at him. That night, I tried to sleep with every device turned off, even unplugged. No screens, no lights. Just me and the dark. And still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was awake in the silence with me. Watching. Waiting. At some point, I drifted off, only to jolt awake to the soft glow of my laptop screen. I swear on my life, I'd shut it down, disconnected the power. But there it was, humming on the desk. The lid open like invisible hands had pried it up. The email sat in the center of the screen, unread, waiting. I slammed it shut and shoved it into the closet, heart hammering, breath ragged. But even as I did, I heard it again, that faint whisper, like static sliding between walls. Not words this time, just laughter. Low, patient, endless. The descent. Attachment unleashed, 800 words. The night I shoved my laptop into the closet, I thought I was buying myself time. Out of sight, out of mind, right? But whatever was in that email wasn't bound to the machine anymore. It had already spilled out. I learned that the hard way. Around 3 in the morning, I woke to the sound of clicking. Soft, rhythmic, unmistakable, the tap of a mouse. My first thought was that I'd left the laptop on again. But when I opened the closet, it was dark, closed, silent. The clicking didn't stop. It was coming from my desk. I crept closer, every step heavier than the last. My monitor flickered on by itself, the screen bleeding to life. For a second it showed my desktop, normal as ever. Then it blinked out, replaced by a grainy gray square. The attachment. It had forced itself open. This time, the image wasn't static. It moved. At first, just a stutter, frame struggling to sync, like an old VHS tape. But then the shapes began to shift, forming something that looked human, but wasn't. Limbs bending wrong, face stretched too wide, mouth frozen in a silent scream. I couldn't look away. Every instinct screamed at me to shut it down, pull the plug, anything. But I was rooted there, paralyzed, as the thing leaned closer. Pixels bled, distorting into shadow. The edges of the screen seemed to swell outward, like the glass was thinning. Then the sound began. At first, a low hiss. Then whispers, overlapping. Dozens of voices crawling over one another. They spoke my name, over and over. Sometimes in unison, sometimes in broken fragments. I slammed the monitor off. The screen went black. Relief lasted less than a second, because the whispering didn't stop. It was behind me. I spun around, chest tight, but there was nothing in the room. Nothing but shadows. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Hand shaking, I picked it up. A new file had appeared in my messages. No sender, no number. Just the same corrupted name as the attachment. Against all reason, I tapped it. The phone screen went white, then bled into the same image from the monitor. The same face, distorted and wrong. Only this time, it wasn't silent. A voice poured from a speaker, low and rasping, as though dragged through static. Why are you resisting? I dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor, the voice still spilling out. Why are you watching? It hissed. You asked for this. I wanted to scream, but the sound caught in my throat. I backed into the corner, shaking so hard my teeth clicked. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, everything stopped. The monitor went black. The phone fell silent. My apartment sank into darkness again, as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. I wasn't alone anymore. The following days blurred into one long nightmare. My devices wouldn't obey me. My TV turned on by itself, showing only static. My phone lit up with blank notifications at odd hours, each one pulsing like a heartbeat. Even my digital alarm clock glitched, numbers melting into unreadable symbols before snapping back. It wasn't just technology, though. I'd catch movement in the corner of my eye, shapes that vanished when I turned, reflections that lagged half a second behind me. Shadows that stretched too far, like they belonged to something bigger. I tried deleting everything. Factory reset, wiped drives, even replaced my phone. None of it mattered. The first time I powered the new one on, the same file sat waiting in my messages. I wasn't dealing with malware. This wasn't code. It was something else, something alive, hiding inside the signal. A parasite that didn't need permission anymore. One night, desperate, I dug deeper. I searched online forums, dark corners of the web, old threads long abandoned. And that's when I found them, other posts. Stories from people who had seen the same email. Most were fragments, garbled sentences, broken uploads, threads that ended mid-sentence. But one detail kept repeating. Once you open it, it doesn't stop until you share it. I slammed the laptop shut, heart pounding. My skin crawled at the implication. A digital infection, a curse that demanded to spread. That was when my screen lit up again, without me touching it. A single line glowed on the monitor, written in that same jagged font. Forwarded. I stared at the words, bile rising in my throat. Forwarded? To who? To Mark? To some stranger? Could I really damn someone else, just to save myself? I refused. I thought I was strong enough. I told myself I'd rather die than unleash this on someone else. But the thing inside the signal doesn't take no for an answer. That night, I woke to my phone buzzing violently in my hand. When I looked, it wasn't asking anymore. Forwarded, or it comes through. And I realized, with cold certainty, that my refusal had consequences. I didn't think it could speak. Until that night, it had been whispers, distorted images, broken fragments of sound. But when I refused to forward the email, it started talking to me. Directly. It began as text. My laptop booted itself at midnight, the screen glowing in the corner of the room, like an open wound. I told myself not to look. I lay in bed, eyes shut tight, pretending I couldn't hear the faint clicking of keys being pressed without fingers. But curiosity always wins. When I finally looked, words were appearing on the screen in real time, like someone invisible was typing them. You will not obey. The cursor blinked. Then more letters appeared, slow, deliberate. You think you are strong. I didn't touch the keyboard. I swear I didn't. But somehow, words began to form in the reply box. My words. Leave me alone. My stomach flipped. It was like my hands were possessed, like my defiance had been pulled out of me and set down in cold, mechanical text. The reply came instantly. We are not alone. I tried shutting the lid, but it didn't matter. The words bled onto my phone screen, then the TV, even my microwave's digital display. Everywhere, the same message repeated. We are not alone. I snapped. What do you want from me? I shouted into the dark, half hoping my neighbors wouldn't hear, half hoping they would. The room went still. Then the laptop chimed. We want you. My throat went dry. The conversation didn't stop there. Over the next week, it spoke to me more often. Sometimes through text, sometimes through sound. Once through the speakers, I heard my own voice, my exact tone, asking questions I hadn't said out loud. Why are you resisting? It whispered one night. Because you're not real. I whispered back, though I didn't believe it. It laughed, a broken, crackling sound, like a corrupted audio file. Do you think real is what you see? What you touch? You opened the door. That made me real. The way it said me made my skin crawl. Like it wasn't one voice, but many, all bound together. Sometimes it tried to bargain. Forward me. It hissed through my phone speaker while I was brushing my teeth. One click. One name. We will go. Other times, it taunted. You are weak. You are alone. No one believes you. And in those moments, it wasn't wrong. Mark had stopped answering my texts after the weird message on his phone. Work had grown suspicious of my absences. I hadn't left the apartment in days, terrified that if I did, it would follow me into someone else's space. It cornered me in my own isolation. The worst part wasn't the words, though. It was the way it knew me. It quoted lines from emails I'd written years ago, ones I'd forgotten. It dredged up old photos, long deleted. Once, it recited my childhood home address in a sing-song voice that made me nauseous. And then one night, it crossed a line. You're not sleeping, it said. the sound warping through my TV. I ignored it. You lie awake. You replay every mistake. I clenched my jaw, trying to drown it out with music. You wonder why your father stopped calling, why she left you, why every friend fades. I ripped the power cord from the wall. Sparks flew. The room went dark. But even in the silence, the words stayed with me, gnawing, because they were true. That's when I realized it wasn't just some digital parasite. It was inside me, rifling through my memories, peeling me open like code. And then it said something I'll never forget. You're telling them this story. I froze. What? I whispered. You're telling them. The ones watching. The ones listening. Do they think they are safe? The blood in my veins turned to ice. Because it wasn't talking to me anymore. It was talking to you. Do you think it stops with him? It hissed, voice breaking through my speakers, my phone, even the dim glow of my alarm clock. It sees you too. Every screen you look at, every word you hear. You're already part of this. I snapped the laptop shut, shaking, sweating, but the damage was done. The fourth wall wasn't just broken. It was erased. And I knew, deep down, that if I kept resisting, it wasn't just me who would pay the price. The escalation felt inevitable, like a storm that finally hit. At first it was small, missing hours, a battery drained in minutes, the smell of metal that vanished when I searched for it. I told myself it was stress. Paranoia has a neat habit of camouflaging as logic. Commands arrived with rhythm, not threats, orders. Forwarded. Forward now. They came through different apps, different fonts, the same jagged insistence. I ignored them at first. Ignoring stopped working. Little traps appeared. A note on the fridge, forward. A picture frame shattered. The shards arranged in a pattern that made my skin crawl. Doors I locked were later unlocked. Files rearranged into folders labeled with names I didn't know. It felt rehearsed, as if something tested boundaries to learn how far I could push. Sleep thinned. I woke with gaps I couldn't explain. My phone showed calls I never made. Once I woke on the couch with crumbs on my shirt and the TV set to a channel I don't subscribe to. The entity invaded my days. Then the moral calculus began. The thing's survival depended on spreading. It acted less like malware and more like contagion. Once it had a host, it needed to move on. The message was simple: share it, or it would not leave. My first forward was to Mark. I told myself it was an experiment. I copied the email into a DM. Weird glitch, check this. I hit send with trembling fingers. He opened it, laughed, then his face on video chat slackened. Later, neighbors reported shouting. His account vanished from my contacts that night. Guilt arrived faster than surprise. The second person was a user from an old forum who'd posted about similar sightings. I told myself they were already in the dark. It was mercy in a twisted way. The thread slowed, then stopped. Moderators posted a terse notice and removed it. Links turned to 404s. Screenshots I saved felt like evidence and like a confession. Every opened message produced the same cycle: surge, panic, absence. Recordings corrupted mid-sentence. Profiles froze. Cached pages returned static. It was like the internet coughed people up and swallowed them. I tried to stop. I burned hard drives, smashed phones, threw the pieces away. It didn't help. The new phone powered on with the same corrupted file waiting. Sent confirmations still popped up. Sending, sent. My hand shook. Worse, it learned voices. Mark's voice left a voicemail pleading for help. It called my name in the night with his cadence. Hearing him forced the truth. Surviving meant others would pay. At 3 in the morning, with static whispering under the walls, I forwarded again. I don't remember selecting addresses. I remember the hollow confirmation and the hollower feeling. The act was a sacrifice disguised as a click. There were nights I watched the window, fearing the light next door would go out and never come back. A neighbor banged on my door at dawn once, terrified, babbling about a shadow that had stood in her hallway and watched her sleep. Officers found her phone on the living room table, screen frozen on an image of her own face, eyes rolled back. She was taken away in an ambulance, muttering about voices and repeating phrases I'd seen in the email. I kept a log on paper because screens betrayed me. Names I'd contacted, timestamps, snippets of replies. Each line felt like a tally in a ledger I did not want to write. Neighbors reported shadows at windows. Police welfare checks found people staring at screens, unable to explain why. Accounts vanished. Threads ended mid-thought with the same line. I don't remember the rest. Nights bled into each other. I kept hearing my own voice in recordings I didn't make, begging forgiveness I didn't deserve. Comments under posts spun theories and challenges. Prove it, they wrote, while others vanished. The choice to send or refuse became a pulse, a taut wire I walked blindfolded. And yet the command blinked, patient as ever. I kept looking for a rule, a loophole, some logic that would free me. But every rule the thing used was simple: spread to survive. Each forward eased the pressure a fraction, like surfacing for a breath before the current dragged me down again. Survival and complicity braided together. I won't claim innocence. I forwarded to live another day. But every sent message became potential harm. The escalation wasn't just technological, it was moral. Each compromise tightened the loop until only the next command blinked on the screen. By the time I started digging for answers, I already knew I was in too deep. Forwarding had bought me slivers of peace, but each reprieve was shorter than the last. The thing wanted me compliant, not curious, which meant curiosity was dangerous. But I couldn't stop. I searched everywhere I could: the darkest forums, archived mailing lists, forgotten corners of the web that hadn't been indexed in years. Most threads had been scrubbed clean, replaced by dead links and 404s. But I learned something from the absences. This wasn't new. The infection had history. The first breadcrumb came from a text-only document, buried in a university's abandoned research server. The file was old, timestamped 1999. It described an anomalous executable attached to a test email, origin unknown. The researcher noted that anyone who opened it began reporting disturbances before communication abruptly ceased. His last line chilled me. I believe this thing doesn't just transmit, it consumes. The second breadcrumb was stranger. An old Usenet thread from 2002, nearly erased. Someone had posted a corrupted attachment under the subject line. Has anyone else seen this face? Replies were fragmented, some nonsensical, others frantic warnings. One message, preserved in a screenshot, read, "Do not reply. Do not share. It doesn't want to be deleted. It wants to be believed." The deeper I dug, the further back it stretched. Stories of haunted telegrams in the 1800s, whispered accounts of operators who heard voices through the wire. Even letters in the 1600s where recipients claimed ink shifted on the page when read aloud. Every era had its medium. The parasite only needed a channel. But one discovery made my blood run cold. On a hidden wiki page, locked behind layers of encryption, I found a name: the Ashburn Protocol. Supposedly, it was a classified government project from the early internet days, tasked with investigating a self-propagating anomaly. The rumor was that scientists had tried to trap it, study it, maybe even weaponize it. The project ended suddenly. Every researcher vanished. The surviving notes suggested only one conclusion: containment failed. That was when I realized the truth. This wasn't a glitch. It wasn't malware. It wasn't even something new. It was ancient, older than email, older than computers. A living pattern, a predator that adapted with each new medium humans invented. When we carved stories into stone, it was there. When we whispered tales around fire, it fed. Now, with screens and signals binding the world together, it was stronger than ever. And I had become one of its carriers. That was the forbidden origin. Not a beginning, but a cycle. A parasite without birth or death, only transmission. I closed my laptop, shaking, but it didn't matter, because I already knew. Origins don't tell you how to stop something. They only tell you how long it's been winning. There's no neat turning point where I can say everything fell apart. It wasn't an explosion, it was erosion. Little pieces of me crumbling away until I didn't recognize what was left. It began with memory. Whole hours slipped from my grip. I'd come to with a fresh coffee cup on the table, still steaming, though I hadn't brewed it. Or my inbox would show dozens of sent messages, each containing fragments of the email, forwarded to people I didn't know. The worst part, Some replies came back. Short, broken things. Why me? It hurts. Or just strings of numbers that rearranged themselves whenever I tried to copy them. I wanted to believe I hadn't sent them, that it was all the entity puppeteering my accounts. But deep down, I knew my hands were involved. Sometimes I'd wake up mid-keystroke, typing out an address I swore I didn't remember. Sometimes I'd hear myself whisper the words out loud before the screen mirrored them back. Then came the glitches outside the screen. Shadows moving in broad daylight. Faces flickering in reflective surfaces. My bathroom mirror, a puddle in the street. The dead black of my phone when it was powered off. I catch a glimpse of myself, smiling when my mouth was still. Neighbors noticed. Mrs. Vasquez from 4B crossed herself when she saw me in the stairwell, muttering something in Spanish before retreating. The mailman stopped buzzing my unit, leaving packages downstairs instead. People looked at me differently, like I carried something contagious. Maybe they were right. The collapse wasn't just personal, it was structural. My apartment warped around me. Walls felt closer than they had any right to. Lights flickered even when the power grid was fine. My TV played channels that no longer existed. I'd fall asleep to static and wake up to news anchors with blacked-out eyes reading headlines about disappearances no one else could confirm. And always, the voice persisted. "You are not resisting anymore," it said one night, whispering from my laptop as I sat motionless in the glow. I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked, "What happens when I stop?" The cursor blinked. Then words scrolled across the screen in perfect rhythm with my own heartbeat. "Then you are free." But I knew freedom wasn't real. Freedom was just another promise it dangled to keep me clicking, keep me sharing. The true collapse came when my boundaries dissolved. One night, I heard my own voice outside my apartment door. It called my name, soft at first, then louder. I pressed my ear to the wood and heard myself on the other side, begging to be let in. When I didn't move, the voice laughed, and the laugh came from behind me. I no longer knew where I ended and it began. Days blurred, maybe weeks. My fridge emptied. My bank account drained itself with orders I never placed. Packages arriving with cables, screens, blank hard drives, tools for building something. I smashed them, but new ones arrived the next day. At last, I understood. I wasn't fighting an invader anymore. I was being hollowed out, repurposed. I was a vessel, and with that realization came a calm I hated, because collapse meant surrender, and surrender meant survival for now. I don't know how much longer I have before there's nothing left of me but the thing speaking through my face, my fingers, my voice. Maybe that's already happened. Maybe the part of me writing this is just a final illusion, a courtesy before it takes over completely. If you're reading this, maybe you think you're safe, that this is only my collapse, not yours. But remember what I said at the start. I should have never opened that email, and neither should you. You probably think the story ends with me. That after everything, the whispers, the commands, the collapse, it would just fade into silence. That maybe I disappear, and you could shut this video off, stretch, laugh nervously, and move on with your night. But you don't understand. This thing doesn't stop. It doesn't care about endings. Stories have endings. Parasites don't. The truth is, by listening, you've already invited it closer. I used to think it needed email to survive, that the cursed message was its body, its vessel. But I've learned better. The medium was never the cage, it was the key. The thing isn't bound by text. It's bound by attention. That's why it talks to me in mirrors. Why it laughs in my own voice. Why it threads itself through static, through data, through every flickering pixel you and I stare at too long. Attention is the open door. And you've already opened it, haven't you? I can feel it now, stretching, crawling further than before. When I first told this story, I thought it was just mine, a confessional, a desperate attempt to leave a warning. But as I speak, I realize I'm just another delivery system, another forward button. You might be thinking, so what? It's just words, just a video. Nothing can reach through the screen. That's what I thought too, until the first time I saw my reflection blink when my eyes were open. Until my phone spoke with my father's dead voice, saying things he never knew. Until I heard my neighbors screaming through the wall, then silence, then nothing at all. Still not convinced? Fine. Do this for me. After this video ends, try turning off your screen. Just for a moment. Watch the black reflection. Count how long it takes before you see something that shouldn't be there. That's when you'll know. It doesn't want me anymore. I've already broken down. I've already been hollowed out, emptied, made into a shell. But you're fresh. You're new. You're still afraid in a way it likes. It feeds on fear, yes. But more than that, it feeds on doubt. The little voice in your head right now saying, "This can't be real. This is just a story." That voice is an opening. The parasite wriggles through cracks, not walls. And you've given it exactly what it needs. Look, I don't want this. I didn't mean to drag you in. But the cycle doesn't ask for permission. It's already moving forward, whether either of us like it or not. That's why all those threads, all those forums, all those forgotten pages ended the same way, silence. Because once the thing reached them, there was no one left to post the ending. I know you want one last chance to pull away, to pretend none of this matters, to close the tab and move on with your life. And maybe you can. Maybe you'll forget in a day or two, and this will just become another creepy story buried in your YouTube history. But when your phone vibrates with no notification, when your computer screen flickers for a fraction of a second too long, when you catch your own voice whispering a word you don't remember saying, don't tell yourself it's nothing. You'll remember this, and you'll realize it's already here. Because the email never needed to be sent to you. You found it by watching, by listening, by letting it slip under your skin through a story you thought was safe. This is the part where I should offer hope, right? Some trick to break the cycle, some desperate instruction to protect yourself. But I don't have one. Every time I thought I found a rule, the thing bent it. Every time I thought I'd reached the bottom, the floor gave way again. The only truth I can leave you with is this. Cycles don't end. They continue. And now you're a part of it. So when you wake at 3 a.m. and see the glow of your screen, even though you swear you turned it off, when you hear the faint tap of keys typing words you didn't write, don't say I didn't warn you, because I didn't just tell you my story. I forwarded it, and now it's yours.